If you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Lore by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the masquerade. In this episode, we continue to unravel the mysteries behind the origins, motives, and cultures of the 9 major vampiric bloodlines in the world of darkness. This episode will focus on the devils and demons of the kindred world, the Baali. I can understand why you are somewhat curious regarding the Baali. A few times I've mentioned them to you in our discussions as them being antagonists to the ancient Cainites, describing them as diabolical demon-worshipping kindred, intelligent plotmeisters who worked with the Bruja to create the unholy clusterfuck that was Carthage. Many assume the Baali to be a myth, a bedtime story elders tell their neonate puppets to keep them in check. These elders speak of how the Baali can tap into powers and magics beyond our reach that allows them to communicate and summon demons that could snuff out the earth in one belch if they so please. It is a discipline they call Daemonian, a diabolical discipline practiced only by the Baali. Its power is that of the devil himself, so you can see why the Baali have become the boogeymen of our kind, how many assume the Baali to be a breed of vampire that simply does not exist. But you are not interested in the opinions of others, are you? That is why you are here, is it not? I have been around long enough to tell you that they do exist. I can tell you that these powers are true. They can summon demons, make people believe they are swimming in lavas of hell, and draw forth your deepest and darkest fears, in addition to other alien abilities. How do I know this? No, I would not consider myself an ally with the bloodline, but I have a far more hands-on experience. I will elaborate later in this discussion, perhaps at a narratively appropriate moment of such experience, or perhaps I may not. It depends if I have the willpower to relive those memories, as it were. Anyway, we begin the origin story of the Baali at the beginning, by which I mean the very beginning, a time before man and woman. We call them the first people, one of God's many prototypes, rejects as it were, who were never given the ability to die. There were many botched creations manifested by God, who were all probably buried within the earth to hide his failings on the masses who would later idolize him. It would take God 6 days to correct this, resulting in Homo sapiens, the fancy Latin name some would use to describe humans if you wish to believe the tales of the Old Testament. Which you should, to an extent that is, for it would mean you believe the tales of our collective origins, the tale of Cain and Abel, if you were to study the Book of Nod I lent you. Both it and the many discussions we've had in the past would tell you that Cain would embrace a select few who would, in turn, embrace their own, who would be known as the Antediluvians. One of these antediluvians stumbled across a tribe of these first men in the city of Ashur, witnessing perform atrocious acts, tossing limb, bone, pus and flesh of their human sacrifices into a large well. Now, for reasons unknown, this antediluvian flew into a great rage and performed the same acts upon them, adding them to this ritualic well. Not all of them died, mind you. Well, of course some survived, otherwise it would be a very short story. 2 siblings by the names of Nergal and Moloch rose from the limbs as new beings of life, which is rather hard to believe, which is why I'm not a huge fan of this story. This tale would also imply that the antediluvian was Cappadocius, for he is occasionally known as Ashur, but then again so is Salot, the Salubri founder. Others would suggest that it may well be the Assamite Tzimisce or Gangrel antediluvian that accordingly created the long-lost 14th clan from this ancient civilization. There is another, slightly less brutal story that describes the embrace of the Baali I know of. It would presume that the brothers Nergal and Moloch were embraced as kindred by some unknown antediluvian in their unknown adulthood, rather than piecing themselves back together as well, first age civilization folk. As kindred, or Cainites, whatever you prefer, they would travel for lost relics and treasures, exploring ancient tombs and digging beneath the ground to see what they could find. What they found deep beneath the earth were the burial grounds of the first people, who greeted them with open arms and gentle smiles. Now, whilst Moloch would happily accept such brotherhood, according to the legend at least, his brother Nergal was a power-hungry vampire who would proceed in draining the first people dry, forcing Moloch to do the same, lest he be destroyed by the ones still standing, the ones that Nergal ignored. What this blood granted the brothers was control over creatures that God would rather have you forget about. Demons that slept beyond the veil, demons found in different worlds from our own. It was a power that the arrogant Nurgle reveled in, a power that attracted disease and vermin wherever Moloch and Nurgle went. And I do not mean that in a metaphorical sense either, but a very, very literal one. The first people, the rejects of God, attracted the worst fiends in the world, fiends that both kind and kindred alike would pick up on with incredible ease. These two, and their subsequent chowder, would carry a tainted aura filled with this corrupted power. The two would come to learn of Namtaru, the spreader of plagues, a powerful demon who the brothers thought could help them reach a power that would make them equal, possibly greater than the other Canaanites. Anyone who crossed Nurgle and Moloch's path would sign their own death warrant with a demon in tow. Namtaru, like most demons, are not known for understanding the concepts of friend or foe, only those that serve them and the sacrifices made to grant them power. Now frightened with this knowledge, Moloch would betray his brother, seeking help from the other antediluvians to take down this powerful demon and the power-drunk Nurgle as they attempted to wreak havoc in the Second City. The history of existence on planet Earth would have ended there, had it not been for the combined efforts of the Nosferatu and the Toreador directly alongside Moloch. Nurgle and his brood would have been able to fight them all off, had it not been for the La Sombra using a long-lost magic to destroy the relics required to summon the demon. Information they obtained from Moloch. The demon's head was removed, and Nurgle was slain. Naturally, the other clans would develop an intense hatred for the Bali and the fucking terrifying power they wielded. It is dangerous, and yet it was a turn of events that surprised Moloch, as he witnessed most of the Bali obliterated out of existence. Under the guise of Bahal Hamon, Moloch took himself and the rest of the smart Bali into hiding as they began to plot their revenge, remaining in the shadows, using their godly powers to call upon demons as and when needed, working alongside his blood-bound Lavatroil in Carthage, where he allegedly died in an embrace. But is he and his brother Nurgle actually dead? For the blood of the first people should be able to resurrect them both, surely. Time will tell, I suppose. What was instrumental to the existence of the Bali was their revenant family, the Dahabi, who share the same disciplines as their creator: obfuscate, presence, and demonian. The Dahabi is said to date back their origins to a time before the First City, reminding you of just how old the Bali really are. They were once incredibly loyal to the clan, the Dahabi I mean, as they were fed a few droplets of Nurgle's blood, allegedly. Many of them still are, well, so they say, as the older family members supervise the younger ones on errands until they can be trusted to go out on their own. Kind of like the relationship between sire and child, but only far more sinister. They are the least family-like of all the revenants, serving packs of barley or one strong elder, and are required to have a strong mind to perform the espionage missions and bear witness to the demonic rituals practiced by the clan. I imagine many of them are shivering wrecks. But let us return back to the Bali proper. The Dark Ages was a trying time for the Bali. You know, what with the church making a large stand to purge anything with a whiff of hearsay attached to it. Bali in the medieval age hid their practices and origin from other Canaanites and dedicated to spreading corruption and disease, possibly contributing to the Black Plague. The Dark Ages would see a surge of power within the clan through a Methuselah called Azanael, who managed to infiltrate the Catholic Church to such a degree that his only superior was the Pope himself. Quite ironic, really, isn't it? Believing that Canaanites were the tools of Satan, Azanael, along with his many disciples, converted several into the Bali bloodline, who are referred to as the Azalani. They are spiritually compromised Diabolists, even by the standards of the Bali. Members of Clan La Sombra were embraced into this Bali offshoot, called the Angelus Aether, but they are often considered the same as the Azamali. This bloodline thing can be particularly dangerous, as they have a mixture of Bali and La Sombra disciplines at their disposal. Now, I know what you're thinking, and I know that you're very confused by that last statement. How does a vampire re-embrace other Canaanites? Well, let me tell you something. It is a power that runs deep within the first people, a power that allows their blood to essentially override our blood. The process the Bali use is the same. Mostly. There is the exchange of blood, of course, that still occurs, but this is often accompanied by a ritual that can, and frequently, kills the kindred outright. And I did plan on telling you my first-hand account of this, but I cannot make myself relive it. I apologize dearly, but we all have our weaknesses. And no, I have not been reconverted into a Bali, as it were, but someone who was once very close to my cold, dank, unbeating heart was. This re-embrace is the reason as to why I, and a select few, fear them for what they truly are. Anyway, let us move on from this. There is more substance to the Bali than being demons summoning ancient vampires. The Bali are explorers first and foremost, students of the unknown, the unknowable, the unspeakable. Those who do not infiltrate as members of the Camarilla Sabbat or remain as independent autarchus find themselves quite at home within the Talmahera. They sacrifice anyone to gain access to occult delights with no remorse. They are the ungodly abominations on kindred society, the drops of blood not wiped from the bastard sire's mouth who are worlds apart from the descendants of Cain. But I say this as if all vampires are spawned from Cain and God. Now I strongly believe that we are the offsprings of Cain and should treat such teachings with the utmost respect, but ultimately, we do not know if God is the progenitor. Cain might be one of the first people after all. History is written by the winners, which makes my purpose in life much more difficult. My point is that the Bali are not so pro-devil, but more so anti-God, which probably accounts for their weakness. All things that are holy harms them as if it was wielded by someone with true faith. They will be there when the end times comes. They encourage it with their practices. Every sacrifice they perform, every murder they inspire, is one more crack in the great dam holding back the deluge of blood called Gehenna. They will happily die to bring about the end of the world, to spite us all, and let their demon playthings run amok with our bodies and souls. And who will be there to stop them, No one. Cause far too many of our kind know not of their existence, beyond a horrible bedtime story. Ignorance is bliss, you know, until it takes the form of a hungry demon that plans to have us for breakfast, with a Bali at its mount, riding on a Gehenna wind. To be kept updated, follow the Law by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.